Welcome, boys and girls. Mr. Man over here. And about to start the session. If there's anybody who has any friends that want to join, have them go ahead and do so. And so tonight's study session is brought to you by Diet Coke, Circle K, and is also brought to you by the letter Z, where we've got our fearless AP Psych leader, Dr. Philip Zimbardo, watching over us to make sure that we are all in good hands. So what you might want to do is you've got the little chat room here, and let me make sure that I've got that up just so I can see it. Miguel is joining us. We've got zebra sharks here tonight. And yes, you're all allowed to be here. The only thing that I ask is, that you make sure that your names are shown if you participate in the chat. I also ask that you keep things on task. So one thing that can happen is that obviously there's going to be a lag, as there always is. And one of the things that will happen is that students will sometimes start talking and getting ahead of the lag in the chat. So I remember who you all are. So welcome, glad you're here. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to do some review of some concepts and make sure that we understand some of those keywords we're looking for. Then we'll do a little independent variable, dependent variable tests, test our knowledge on that, and then we will look at some sample test questions from Albert.io. So I subscribe to Albert.io, and so we can look at a few of those questions. Albert.io is a free resource for certain questions. They just don't let you do anything that's considered a difficult level, and they don't provide any kind of explanation for you at the free service. But otherwise, it's a subscription service, and you should not have to pay for a subscription. So let me do that for now, and if you want to choose to do that after you see it, then that's your choice, but you can certainly do well with the resources that are available on the website. So the big thing to do tonight is to maybe have any kind of notes out for you if you have anything that you see tonight that is confusing to you. That way you can jot down some things and kind of make sure you study efficiently. And before the night is over, we'll go through and we'll take a quick look at the website resources that are available to you to make sure that that's all there for you. So if you have questions, the chat is here, and I can see your chat questions, and I can respond to them as we go along. And certainly participate in the chat, because unfortunately Google Hangouts doesn't set it up where I can actually talk to you or you can talk to me. And if they do, then I'll need to get Willie Gowan to show me how, because I don't know. But what we'll do here is let me get everything kind of set up, and we'll flash some things on the screen. Willie, I was talking about the fact that you can't necessarily do back and forth chat that I'm aware of through Google Hangouts via YouTube. So in other words, use the chat window and I can see your questions. So with that being said, let's take a quick look and take a quick look at our first thing, which is let's do a little bit of making sure that we can pick out the different types of studies based upon the types of wording that we see, so that we can always be very careful and know that we have our words that are there. But I didn't want to show that one to you, so let me show you the other one. Those of you who are feverishly trying to copy all that down, I'm on to you. So let's take a look at this document. And let me make sure that I can get the chat window up so that I can see what you're saying. And let's take a quick look at what we've got here. So let's take a look at number one, where it says, I seek lots of data in order to make predictions. Which one of those 8 types of psychological study methods do we see here? See what you guys come up with in the chat window. Well, we're going with number one first. Good one, Paula. Yes, they are maybe empirical, but of the 8, case study, interview, naturalistic observation, laboratory observation, survey, psychological test, correlation studies, or experiment, if we're looking at this first one here where it says I seek lots of data in order to make predictions, what can we say about that? Julia Morales says correlation studies, as we've got Ms. Key, Kate Leonard. You've said correlation studies. Oh, and by the way, I go with the first 4 answers, and then we'll put them down. And then what we'll do when we're done with these is we'll take a look at some of the answers and make sure that you're all good on that one. So seeking lots of data in order to make predictions. Do I get one more on correlation studies? So Leo has said lots of data, as in lots of data about one thing or a lot of different data. So it doesn't say, so you got to go with what you see here. So you just see lots of data. But correlational studies is what Praneeth says. We'll check our answer in just a little bit. That's our 4th one. Let's take a look at the second one. I am used best when combined with other methods, since all I can do is offer insights based upon perceptions. Praneeth said naturalistic observation. Julia is in concurrence. Willie says that. Ms. Key says that. Val says that. So I'll put that in there. And Paula says case study. So I'm going to put down here, and we'll see when we get to our answers. Let's take a look at the third one. I find out cause and effect. So for third one, Kate says experiment. Remy says, why is that? Samantha Skinner says experiment. Ms. Key says experiment. Experiment. All right, we got a lot of consensus on experiment here. So I'll put experiment down. And here's another one. I may be the most famous since you take fake versions of me on social media. Psychological tests. Interesting that it's a little divided on this one. I will say that I'll put down both because you might all be right on that one. So let's look at the next one. I get to ask lots of people the same questions and gather the data to reach general conclusions. Elaine says survey for the fifth one. Survey says. All right, I'm going to put down survey. So let's take a look. I find one individual and do intensive work on them. Valentina wants to know if she can change her answer. No, you are locked into that forever and ever and ever. All right, so I've got case study, not cast, case study. All right, got that one down. I like to people watch and take notes, but I do see this in the habitat of my subjects where they cannot see me. Got naturalistic. Do I get one more? Oh, nice. Naturalistic observations. Nice. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. I examine people in situations that I get to manipulate, but I cannot determine cause and effect. I've got lab observation, correlation studies, lab observation, lab. Why do you guys say it's lab observation? Outvoted. Because you manipulate the variables. It's correlation, Caroline says, cause and effect. Correlation is not causation. But I think, Julia, what Caroline is saying, if I may speak for her, is that it doesn't determine cause and effect, and we know that correlation can't determine cause and effect. So lab observation actually wins this one by the number of people who put that there. But I want you to see here, this is going to be a key. Situations that I get to manipulate. And in a correlation, you have to ask yourself, can you manipulate any of the variables in a correlational study? Samantha has a very nice little observation there. You're in a lab, so you can conduct experiments, but are not in a real life situation. So interesting. So All right, let's take a look here. My goal is to obtain as much information on one person in order to gain insights that I can use to better understand that person. Caroline has declared. The next one is case study. I've got 4, so I'm going to put that down. Nice. All right, let's take a look at one. An example of me is where I put people in a room and make it look like there's a fire so I can see how they react. Okay, so Safi, Elaine, Willie, Caroline, Ms. Key, Val, Leo, the other Caroline. Both Carolines are in agreement that this is experimental, but let me ask you, what is it that's telling you all that it's experimental? Safi says how they react and observation. So I don't understand what you mean by that one. I mean, that's just a crime. It's technically an experiment because you test to see how people react. Safi says manipulating variables. So observing how they react after manipulating the environment. Couldn't it be a lab observation? See a cause and effect relationship. You're putting people in a controlled environment, you're all saying. So, okay, that's good things to keep in mind. And I'll put here lab observation. So let's look at the next one. This should be easy. Sometimes when I use this method, people may think of me as a nosy reporter. As, I'm going to give you a clue here, as in metaphor. Now I want you guys to look here. Is interview on there? Sure is, so you can put that there. And I'm going with interview. Okay. Every semester, students ask their psych teachers if they can give an IQ test to see how smart they are. Little do they know that IQ is only the beginning of me. This one looks to be a stumper. Caroline McSherry has said psych tests, as has Safi. Caitlin's asking, Leo is saying, Julia is saying, Val is saying, Jennifer is saying, Goche is saying. Samantha's going, psych test, and Ms. Key is going, oh no, I feel sad. So let's put psych test down, and I'm going to put a little star next to that, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. So, all right. Here's the next one. I have the greatest level of control in my method. My method is the toughest to do, but it is very important. I have the greatest level of control in my method. My method is the toughest to do, but it is very important. I see lab test. I see experiment. So I'll go with experiment. And it looks like, do both Carolines agree on this one? I only have one Caroline. I don't know if we can proceed. but we certainly got more than our 4 that we're looking for. So this is all good. So, all right, so experiment is what we got there. I am all about how strong relationships are, but I'm never outside of negative 1 to positive 1. Thanks, Leo. I didn't catch it. I see it now. We can proceed. I'm all about how strong relationships are, but I am never outside of negative 1 to positive 1. All right, you guys are saying correlation. Okay. Both Carolines have said, as has Leo, Val, and Julia. All right, let's take a quick look. Once you know how to use my method, you will probably not get bored waiting in line at the grocery store or any other public place. Leo starts us off with naturalistic observation. Julia is asking. Ashton says natural. Ms. Key says naturalistic. Caroline says observation. Jennifer says observation. Samantha says that. Caroline McSherry says that. Tai Chi has said that. That's kind of creepy. According to Tai Chi, people are watching. Naturalistic observation is what I would put down. All right. I am the method used when studying little children in developmental psychology. I can set up situations to see how the kids react. Ask the teacher about the marshmallow study. Naturalistic lab obs. Julie goes, wait, no. So it looks like the consensus is somewhere in between lab observation and experiment. So I'll put the questions down. We'll see the answers in just a second. Julia has declared it is lab. So we're going to go with that. Elaine says it's not naturalistic because it's not a natural environment. An interesting observation. Samantha says, does lab observation have to be in a lab setting? And what is lab observation? Please clarify the difference between that and experiment. All right. We'll do that in just a minute, Val and Remy. Let's look at this second to the last one. I'm the king of research methods, but because people are so complex, it's often difficult to use me. Experiment or case? Experiment or case? Experiment or case? Sounds like the jury's a little out on this one. So I'm seeing both. Looks like it's kind of an even split just visually looking. So, and then let's look at this. When I say there is a link between two ideas, people often misunderstand and assume the link is causal. It's not. Leo says correlation. Samantha says correlation. Correlation, correlation, correlation. All right. Nicely done. Ready for some answers? All right. Now, when we do the answers here, understand that when we get to the answers here, I'll explain a couple things that might make some sense to you. So let's go to this one. That's the one we just had, sorry. Give me a sec. Let's go to this one. And here are the quote-unquote answers that came about. Now, I'm going to tell you before we go through all of these, which I'm going to turn black for a second so as to keep you from going through all the answers. Looking at these, where you see case study, interview, naturalistic observation, lab observation, survey, psychological tests, correlational studies, or experiment. So keep in mind that I freely admit I steal everything. And this one was one I saw in a set of resources that a fellow teacher let me copy off of his hard drive. And what you're looking at here is, for our purposes, we don't need to worry about laboratory observation, or for we don't need to worry about the we don't need to worry about psychological tests, and that's because these were not part of our vocabulary. And so that's why I said hold off and don't freak out, because we don't need to worry about those. So I wanted to see what you came up with, because it's just nice to hear some of your logic, but not to worry as far as any of that goes, because you're fine. Interviews, nicely asked there on that one. So interviews, Samantha and Ms. Kia asked, is that interviews are essentially going to be considered part of a method that you can use in a case study, or technically in a survey, and that could be part of an overall experiment or correlational studies. And so interview on its own, you're not going to be asked. It would just be something that you would know as part of those possibilities. So the lab observation and experiment. A laboratory observation is kind of like the, in the case of how this would work, a laboratory observation would be where there could be some manipulation of variables, but you're only observing how the, like for example, you could have not even manipulation of variables, you could have variables, you could do random assignment, you could even do blind or double blind, but you're only going to look at the specific results. You won't necessarily have a control group with a placebo, and so that's kind of where that comes from. And but yeah, it's not necessarily necessarily you would need to know as far as what the book has shown you and what the AP outline has shown you. So let's take a look at some answers now, and I'll make sure that we have a no color fill. And let's take a look at this one. So we said, I see lots of data in order to make in order to make predictions. That is a correlation study. Now, tell me what the keyword is here. Predictions. I'm going to go with that as well. Prediction is a good one to have. So whenever you're looking at anything that's going to allow you to make a prediction, as we talked about in class today, we're going to be looking at predictions. So then let's take a look at the next one. I best use when combined with other methods. So since all I can do is offer insights based upon perception, that is interview. And you guys had said to that one, you had said natural observation or case study. So in this case, don't worry. because you don't have to know interview for your test. And it could be used as part of a case study or as a method of surveying. Hang tight for just a second. I'll be right back. I've got a little doggy that won't leave me alone. Give me 1 second. Okay, I am back. What do we got going on here? I've got don't let your streams be memes. Streaming struggles confirmed. Diet Coke is my lifeblood. Thank you for that observation. So interview, again, you don't have to worry about that one. Cause and effect, experiment. You guys are good on that one. This was psychological tests. I would add surveys to that, like some of you said, because there are lots of those little, whatever, BuzzFeed or what, I don't know what they are. They're just always little surveys that pop up. But you do also get those like fake little psychological tests that'll tell you that you're wonderful or something like that. And what else we got here? We've got, I find one individual and do intensive work on them. I don't like the phrasing there because it might sound like therapy, but it is a case study. And I like to watch people watch and take notes. Naturalistic observation, as you guys said. Case study. I would say that this is technically a laboratory observation, but in the terms that you learned, it would also lean toward experiment. And this one was correct as far as psychological tests. And when we do learning and we talk about IQ tests and things like that, you will learn that. Don't worry about it right now. I have the greatest level of control in my method, but the method is toughest to do. It's very important. That's experiment. And again, here's the big one. You have control. I'm all about how strong relationships are, but I'm never outside of negative one. You guys correctly said correlation. Once you use my method, you'll probably not get bored waiting in line at a grocery store or any other public space. You said you said naturalistic observation, and you were correct. As far as laboratory observation, you guys actually deduced this one pretty correctly. And we will actually learn about the marshmallow study later, the creeper method, right? And I'm the king of research methods, but because people are so complex, it's often difficult to use me. You correctly said experimental. And when you say there's a link between two ideas, people often misunderstand and assume the link is causal. It's not. You guys correctly said correlation. So nicely done, my friends. Let's see, you guys had a little bit of division on that one. No? Let's see what you guys said on that last one. No, you said correlation, which is good. Good one, guys. Experimental is king. Elaine, you are correct. You rock the heezy. So let's take a look now at our next activity. And for our next activity, we're going to take a look at some experimental design, but using it with my favorite, one of my favorite things ever, and that's going to be using that with something very, 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 very important to society and to life. And that is going to be The Simpsons. The Simpsons. Okay. So let's take a look at our first one. Smithers thinks that a special juice will increase the productivity of workers. He creates two groups of 50 workers each and assigns each group the same task. In this case, they're supposed to staple a set of papers. Group A is given the special juice to drink while they work. Group B is not given the special juice. After an hour, Smithers counts how many stacks of papers each group has made. Group A made 1,587 stacks. Group B made 2,113 stacks. So in this case, and I'm going to do this way, guys. I'm sorry, but I won't be able to see your chat if I don't make that a little smaller. In this particular case, let's see. Will we have to design one for the FRQ or like describe one possibly? And I'll tell you about FRQ in just a second. Yes, Willie Gow. I said that. I went there. All right, so let's take a look at this particular example. Let's see what is the control group in this particular example. What would you say the control group is? Derek has said the control group is the group that has not been given the special juice. Leo says that is group B. Jennifer says workers who weren't given the juice. Caroline McMinamy says B. Ms. Key says group B. First, you would define the control group. Are you asking that, Derek? And under what circumstances would you want to define the control group? Are you talking about here or in any other, if you were to be given something like this? You would say, I'm sorry, if this was an FRQ, you would explain what a control group is, and then you would mention that it's group B, but why is it group B? You would have to add that into that. Derek has asked, so define and apply in all FRQs. K, that's correct. All right, so now looking at this so that you can make sure we get some practice in being able to identify the differences between control groups and the independent, dependent variables, et cetera, et cetera. Elaine Chang says that we have to define like everything in FRQs. Yep, define and apply. All right. Anyway, let's take a look. Back to Smithers. Got group B, okay. What is the independent variable here? Derek is saying the independent variable is the special juice. So what makes this the special juice? Well, I'm sorry, what makes the special juice the independent variable? Because it's the one that the researchers control, okay? Is there any dissension on that particular description? It's the only variable being manipulated in the experiment. Okay? Manipulate, because it's what's being changed actively by the experimenters. Absolutely, I think, we'll wait till we get to the answers. Dependent variable. Derek, I think you said is the stacks of paper for each group, A or B. What is the dependent variable? Well, I mean, what's the definition of a dependent variable? The variable measured. Okay. It's the response to the stimulus or just what can be measured. And that's the number of stacks of papers, you said. Okay, interesting. The variable that is altered as a result of manipulating the independent variable. All right. Okay, so now, if you had to come to a conclusion based upon what you've seen here, what should Smithers' conclusion be? The juice actually inhibits worker productivity. Plot twist. The special juice had a positive correlation to the productivity over the amount of paper stacks accomplished comparative to no special juice. But you said, oh, whoops, didn't read group B and group A. So what's the whoops? What's the realization you just made there, Derek? If you wouldn't mind sharing your thought process. That it's a negative correlation. An inverse relationship between special juice and productivity. All right. Don't worry about how this experiment can be improved right now. Let's take a look at the answers. So this is very interesting based upon what you said. If I'm looking here, if I said, what is the control group? You said group B. And then you asked all kinds of questions about FRQs. And then I asked what the independent variable is, and you said special juice. So in this particular case, it says the volume of special juice, which the only thing that I would say in regard to that one is it doesn't really specify volume in the discussion up in the top. So, but you did say that the dependent variable was this number of stapled packs of paper. You said the answer given here is that special juice interferes with the worker's productivity since Group A stapled fewer packets than Group B. So this is what was interesting based upon what you guys said. And RIP, no need to say volume anyway because the amount given did not change. Right, that's what I agree with you on that one, Leo. I don't know why it says that specifically. But when you look at what you guys said, Derek said that you guys related this in terms of positive or negative correlation, but be careful with that. Do you know why? Conclusion. What do you mean by that, Derek? You said conclusion? There's one experiment and the results are not necessarily conclusive. Take a look at this again. So I'm going to make this big for a second, and then I'll take it down. But if you're looking here, the special juice interferes with the worker's productivity since Group A stapled fewer packets than Group B. So if you're looking here, hypothesis, special juice will increase the productivity of workers. He gives a control group, one that doesn't get special juice. And then he has Group A is given the special juice, but Group B actually had more stacks than Group A. So Group A, who did take the special juice, is inhibited. It interfered with the worker's productivity, and therefore, hypothesis rejected because it was not correct. So it would be Group A produced less papers than Group B, or perhaps Group A is simply far less efficient, but random assortment prior to being given the juice. So you guys are hitting on a couple of really interesting things here when it comes to statistics and experiments. You're looking at validity. And so you're talking about, was there random assortment? Was there random selection into the groups? Was there a random assignment? So if you were to, and Derek, you've got a good question here. Derek says, so would you just state your observation relative to the hypothesis? In this particular example, you would do just that, based simply off of what you have here. Now, if you look at number 5, or how could this experiment be improved, you have said a couple of things here that I think could go very well into how it could be improved, which is make sure that you use random assignment as far as group selection goes. Make sure that you have a representative sample to use from so that it represents all the workers and not just certain workers. Those are things that you could make sure that you improve it is by actually calling it out. But in the case of what Derek said here, Derek, you pointed out, do you just give your observation relative to the hypothesis? And if you were given something like this and asked these questions, like in an FRQ, that would be exactly what you would do based upon this. Now, you've all noted that there's information that would need to be clarified in order to better answer these questions. And you're right, there would be. And if this was an FRQ, it would likely ask you that kind of question and allow you to make those observations. So Jennifer, tell Sarah Wands I said hi. Let's take a look at another example, and then we'll move into doing some test questions. Let's take a look at our buddy Homer here. And let's take a big look at this. Homer notices that his shower is covered in a strange green slime. His friend Barney tells him that coconut juice will get rid of the green slime. Homer decides to check this out by spraying half of the shower with coconut juice. He sprays the other half of the shower with water. After 3 days of treatment, there is no change in the appearance of the green slime on either side of the shower. So, take a look here at what is the initial observation. Very simple. Leo says slime on the shower. Hooray. Now, what's the control here? You say the water. But Derek says half the shower with treatment. The half with water. Okay, why is the water the control? The coconut is being tested because it has no treatment, which he is testing to see if there's anything that changes. So you're right, Elaine, that the coconut is what was being tested. That's exactly right. But Derek, you hit upon boom right here where you say with the water, and I think that Leo just said the same thing. So the water is a normal thing for a shower to be sprayed with and would not change the nature of the slime. And Derek said essentially the same thing. It has no treatment. So he's basically testing to see if anything changes. Caroline says, is it because the shower would normally be exposed to and he's testing the normal versus the coconut? Boom. Correct, correct, correct. Samantha, I will put this on the website online a little later. So not to worry on that one. I'll make sure you have that. So the dependent variable would be what? I'm sorry, the independent variable would be what? The independent variable would be the coconut juice. Leo says the spraying or not spraying of the coconut juice. Ms. Key said the same thing, if they're spraying the coconut juice or not. And that's what's being tested, whether or not it does anything. So the independent variable is the spraying or the outcome. Okay, Derek says the spraying. Caroline says the spraying of the coconut juice. Then what's our, and Leo says the same thing. What's our dependent variable then? appearance of the green slime, whether the appearance changes or not, the presence or absence of green slime. Samantha says slime, the decay or no decay of the green slime. Okay, and I think that the conclusion should be very evident. So I'm going to just go boom. So a strange little green slime is in the shower is your initial observation. You have correctly said that the control group is the half of the shower not being sprayed. You also said that the coconut juice is the independent variable, which this talks about the volume. And again, it doesn't make any reference to volume. I guess if you wanted to say 3 days worth of coconut juice is the volume, you could say that, but it doesn't make a specific reference to that. So don't even worry about the volume part of it. But the fact is that the coconut juice is the independent variable. The dependent variable is the disappearance of the green slime. And so this would be, if the coconut juice worked, then the idea, the outcome would be that the green slime would go away. And what should Homer's conclusion be? Coconut juice is not effective when trying to get rid of the green slime from the shower. Okay. Now, for this, which I will post online, I'll post this. I'll show you exactly where I'll post it in just a moment. But for this particular exercise, one of the things that you want to make sure you understand is it's very important to have it's very important to make sure that you understand what these definitions are and what you would do to look for those. And so it's very, it's kind of very crucial. Control group, your independent variable, dependent variable, whether or not there's a placebo, and all of that. Goche asks, will you be able to access this live stream as a video once it is over? And yes, you can. It will, it has, they call it DVR or something like that, and you'll be able to see it just fine. So let's take a look really fast at what you will, what you're going to be looking for on the website, where I'll put that particular presentation. If you go to the website, let's go to my browser for a second, and let's see. We're going to present that to everybody, and let's go to let's go to the website. You're going to go to AP Psychology. Let me make this normal size. I don't know why I ended up at 90. You're going to go to AP Psychology. You're going to go to Psych Study Links. And here are some things about Unit 1 and Unit 2. And lots of little video things about, for example, how to identify dependent and independent variables, operational definitions, control variables, independent, correlational studies, measures of central tendency, statistics on psychology. All of that is there. So for this particular one, I will make a little bullet point right there with the link to the PowerPoint presentation that we just took a look at, so that you know where to look for that when we're done with the presentation tonight. Okay, so as we now switch into the next phase, let's take a look at some actual test questions with Albert I.O. Is the test going to be similar to the quizzes you've taken? Yes, it will. And And so you'll have, it'll look almost exactly like the quizzes you've taken. Samantha asks, is Unit 2 going to have a heavier weight on the test? It's got more content in it, so just by volume, it's going to have more, there will be more questions having to do with Unit 2 than, like, say, Unit 1. Unit 1 is such a quick little fast unit. There's only 3 modules on it, as opposed to 6 or so for Unit 2. So just by the nature of what you have alone, it's going to be a little more volume on the test, but it's not weighted any heavier, if that's what you mean, other than there's more questions for it. That's something to just kind of keep in mind. Okay, so here we are. Let's take a quick look at history and approaches. And if you look here, these would be things that are free, where you can actually use these for free. And then there's subfields and major historical figures in Unit 1. So we'll take a few questions out of each of these. I won't go through all of them, but that way you guys can have a bit of a look at at some of these questions and kind of review that information. Now, the other thing that you can do, in addition to what we're doing now, is when we're done tonight, don't forget there's this multiple choice quiz website. And if you look here, it's under study links. And there is this multiple choice quiz website. And if you go to that, it has all the little practice tests. So for this particular one, you're looking at schools of psychology, and you're looking at research methods. And don't forget, we looked at this a little bit when it came to quizzes, but there are a few dozen questions here, 90 to be exact, that show you test questions that you can use to try to do this. The only thing it won't do is it won't give you any kind of explanation about the answer, but you can choose your answers. If you put your name or whatever name, it's not going anywhere. I don't really know why the name's got to be there. If you do that, then you come down here, check your work, and it'll show you which answers you got correct and incorrect. The biggest thing to keep in mind here is, like we talked about in class when it came to quizzes. And when we talked about quizzes in class, one of the things that was really important was that if you take these little quizzes like this, or the ones that I'm going to show you in just a minute through Albert, the biggest thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you actually take note of what you miss. And those are the things to focus your attention on for study. If you just keep reviewing your vocabulary over and over again, and and it's good to make sure you review it, but if you just keep going over the same things and reading your notes over and over again, you're going to spend a certain amount of your time on things that you know and that you know well. So one of the things that these little tests and quizzes things do is they reveal to you where your weaknesses are, and that means you can then go look at those topics directly and make sure that you use your time a little wisely as you start to wind down on what time you have available to you. So that's something to keep in mind. It's an option that's there. It may work well for you. So that being said, let's go back to our Albert I.O. and we'll take a look here at your overall kind of test questions here. I'm going to share this particular thing with you directly big, so I will be able to see your responses, but you won't see my small screen. So give me a second on that one, and we are going to go specifically to just Albert I.O. And I'll make that bigger. Whoops. Give me a second. That should work. And let's take a quick look here then at a couple questions. What do we have to know for Module 8? Good question. For Module 8, what you want to look at is you want to look at ethics in general and what qualifies ethical research and what doesn't. There'll only be a couple questions on your test about it. We actually will hit ethics as we go through the class over time. So it'll come back again and again. So while it won't be a major focus on this particular exam, we will have lots of exposure to it, particularly for AP exam purposes. So let's take a couple looks at some questions here with regard to early stuff. And we'll take a quick look at early approaches to psychology. And here we have, Amber believes that each thought or memory can be broken down into smaller elements, such as the emotions and concepts behind them. In which historical approach would she find people who believe the same thing? Will she find it in functionalism, Gestalt, behaviorism, structuralism, or psychoanalysis? Would that be functionalism, Gestalt, behaviorism, structuralism, or psychoanalysis? What say you, good people in AP Psych land? Derek says structuralism. Praneeth says Gestalt, or Gestalt, actually. Jennifer says Gestalt. I have a third Gestalt. Gestalt. An organized whole that is perceived as more than the sum of its parts. Samantha says, do we need to know what it is? They didn't have an in-depth explanation of it in the textbook. That being Gestalt. No, you don't. You do need to know Gestalt, but it's not in depth. None of them are terribly in depth at the moment, so you don't have to worry about really in depth stuff. But so Samantha, what you know from the book is perfect. Kate says structuralism. George is saying structuralism, I think. Derek's having a crisis. He said structuralism, but is Gestalt the opposite? Is it not? Can I scroll up? Yes. George is saying yes, he thinks it's structuralism. Praneeth pranked you. Ooh, confirmed. Praneeth, I didn't take you as the prankster type. Okay. I have 4 structuralism here. Let's see. Let's see what we've got. Well, Derek, you got to decide. Because if you go with structuralism, that's a 4th one. Jennifer, you're sad? Derek's going structuralism. Matthew Anderson's come in and said structuralism. All right. Let's submit. Upgrade to answer again. I've already upgraded. Forget that. Choice D is correct. Amber is a structuralist. Belief is pretty much the definition of this school of thought, which was popular from the 1870s to the early 1900s. Think of the goal of structuralism as trying to make a periodic table of the stuff of thoughts, emotions, colors, shapes, that could be combined into more complex ideas. So A is functionalism is the nemesis. I like how they make it like this whole little like Captain America Civil War thing. The nemesis. Those early psychologists who thought it was more important to understand the purpose of behavior rather than how it was organized. And this is interesting because you guys are going about Gestalt psychology, and also disagree with the structuralists, arguing that you can't break down thoughts. You take apart your iPhone, you don't have the ingredients of a phone, you have a pile of junk. And then choice E, psychoanalysis, did care about thoughts, but Freud wanted to cure people, not create a guide to thought stuff. I like how that put that. And behaviorism, which emerged in the 1920s, focused entirely on the outside environment. So, an organized whole is perceived as more than the sum of its parts. Question perceived as parts. Samantha says, what is the key word that indicates structuralism as the answer? So, in this particular case, let's take a look at that one, Samantha. Here's your answer document. So if we look at the question, Amber believes that each thought or memory can be broken down into smaller elements, such as emotions and the concepts behind them. So the big thing here, from my perspective, is it broken down into smaller elements. That would be the key phrasing here. Thoughts or memory can be broken down into smaller elements. So if you come here, that is pretty much the definition of structuralism. And so this is a really good way of thinking of structuralism. So if this helps give you a mnemonic to keep it straight in your head, think of it as trying to make a periodic table of the stuff of thoughts. And that can be combined then into more complex ideas. From Keith, you have a verb made out of your name, Praneeth. All right. I need to look at something here because it's saying upgrade subject. And if that's the case, hold on. I don't get what's happening here. Give me a second. Well, hold on here. Obviously, I had this one wrong. So this is interesting. Sorry about this, folks. All right, while I do this, we're going to take this off screen share because I've got to finish this little subscription here so that we can do this, and I don't want you to see my credit card. So give me just a second. processing now. While it's processing, do we have any GoFundMe, Vanover? Vanover doesn't trust us. Vanover's credit would be ran over. This is what you say, Derek. These are not my words. So I say teenagers know themselves better than anybody else. That's all I have to say. But Matthew, you're right. I don't trust you. Not with my credit card information, and certainly not on YouTube, where the whole nation would have my credit card. But now it looks like Albert's like freaked out on me here. So let's see. It's freaking out on me. What's going on here? This is not fun. The stream can rewatch. All right. I'm afraid I'm going to get charged twice if I do something here. Why is this doing this to me? Why must this be ruining my life? Oh, it evidently is now working, I think. Give it just a second. We'll be right back in just a second. And we'll be right back for a quick break. We'll be back after these messages. Be good in the chat room. All right, boys and girls. How long is the average study session? I usually run them to about 9:45, maybe even to 10. Dude, some of the study sessions are like 3 hours. That's right. And that is Philip Zimbardo. It's brought to you by the letter Z tonight. Good eye there, David. All right, here we go. Let's go back to these particular questions. We're going to go practice. We just saw this first one on early approaches, on this being what is this, the free version? I just paid for it. All right, we're going to have some trouble. All right, Albert I.O. is no longer getting my endorsement. I just said that. I don't even endorse it. It's just there. Let's take a quick look at the free resource for a little bit and look at these. So let's take a look at the research methods, and let's look at the first one. A psychologist using a method of naturalistic observation would A, carefully design controlled situations in which to observe behavior. B, rely on observations of subjects' responses to questionnaires. C, observe behavior as it happens outside the laboratory or clinic. Or D, make records of the behavior of clients treated in therapy. What would be the answer to this one? Jennifer says C. Derek says C. C. C for correct. Got lots of C's here. Okay, I'm going to put C. We won't see the answer for a little bit, so we'll take a look. All right, let's take a look at the second one. In a study of the effects of alcohol on driving ability, the control group should be given A, a high dosage of alcohol, B, 1/2 the dosage given to the experimental group, C, a driving test before and after drinking alcohol, or D, no alcohol at all. Jennifer says D, Caroline says D, Ms. Key says D, Derek says D. Okay, so why is that what the control group should be given? Let's explore this a little bit. D for don't do it. The control group should not receive the treatment. Why, George? Why, George? Why? Because you need to compare the effect on the independent variable to when it isn't there. Okay. See, we'll go ahead. George has convinced me, but I don't know anything. I've got amnesia right now. So let's take a look at this one. Control is supposed to be what is normal. You don't normally drive impaired. I hope not. So, okay, let's take a look here. A scientific explanation that remains tentative until it has been adequately tested is called a... C, hypothesis, 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 hypothesis. I'm getting lots of hypotheses is the answer. So I'm going to put that down. That's what you're telling me. Uh-oh. Praneeth wants to change now. How do we know you're not pranking, Praneeth? Why should we change? The theory option is a trick, Goche says. What do you mean by that, Goche? You want to explain? Like, don't theories summarize or offer an explanation which lead to a hypothesis to be tested? So let's see, that's what Praneeth asks. Derek says, theory, a supposition or a system of ideas intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles independent of the thing to be explained. So, Praneeth, are you saying that this number 3 is actually a theory? Hypothesis, a supposition, a proposed explanation made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation. People often describe a theory as something that is yet to be established, but theories aren't guesses. They are based on reliable accounts of the world. Little did you know that hypothesis and theory could be this confusing. Okay, so Goche is going with hypothesis and would probably say that Praneeth might be off, I would assume, and I would imagine that she would say Derek is thinking, he can't seem to come up with it. He's saying hypothesis. Praneeth says, I guess that's true, and George is saying a theory isn't much different than a law. All right, we're going to go with hypothesis then. I'm glad you guys are thinking about this, though. This is very important to think about. So let's take a look at this. A study to determine the degree of relationship between two events is called, oh, you ought to get this one by now, naturalistic, correlational, controlled experiment, or survey. George. I got D, I got a B, I get a B, 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 B. Ooh, George. I think George is getting schooled right now. George is getting schooled, son. B for B. Oh, for Beyonce. All right. George was singing backwards. So I'm going to go with the correlational method, even though it was linked to Beyonce. Let the beehive come after me. All right. Let's take a look here. Blank is an ability to evaluate, compare, analyze, critique, and synthesize information. Nice, George. I'm seeing A, critical thinking. I've got 4 A's. A, they're the grade we hope for on this test. Oh, Joseph, stop that. A, if you read. Matthew. Or if you read, one of the two. All right. Okay, let's go to the next one then. The phrase, a theory must be also falsifiable, means A, researchers misrepresent their data. B, a theory must be defined so it can be disconfirmed. C, theories are a rich array of observations regarding behavior but with few facts to support. Or D, nothing. So why must a theory be defined so that it can be disconfirmed? So Praneeth says theories are to be tested. All right. Seems like there could be some more to that. And as we learn new information, we make new theories to summarize our findings. So this means if we come up with a theory, then we must also try to disprove it in order to say it's indeed a theory. Ooh, George just got deep there. There's no such thing as a perfect truth. That's what keeps us moving forward. It is ponderous, George. Derek's called it philosophy. All right. Senior quote. George isn't even a senior yet, Goche. He's beyond his years. Okay, so I'm going to go with B then from what you guys put. Knowledge. All right. The products of naturalistic observation are best described in terms of explanation, theory, prediction, or description. Pranita said D, description. M. Key says D. TJ says D. Eric Hahn says D. As does JT, GC, DL, C, McMinn. All right. Don't pick AC. All right, I'm going to put your D down. All right. The teacher believes that a group of children is very bright and the second group is below average in ability. Actually, the groups are identical, but the first group progresses more rapidly than the second. This demonstrates A, the self-fulfilling prophecy, B, the placebo effect in natural experiment, C, observer bias in naturalistic observation, or D, the ethical problems of field experiments. Tai Chi, I didn't say period 1 was smarter and that 3 was below average. I just said that period 1 certainly followed all the directions without prompting this morning. I've got A, I've got C's. Now C's went out. So I'm going to put that down. When we get to 10, I'll check some answers here. A confirmed prank. All right. A psychologist observes the confrontation between two rival neighborhood gangs from the window of an abandoned building. This method of collecting observations is best described as experimental regression, naturalistic observation, controlled experimentation, or a clinical case study. All right, lots of B's. All right, let's go to the next one then. In an experiment to find out if taking ginseng increases IQ scores, the IQ scores would be the independent variable, the control variable, an extraneous variable, or the dependent variable. Psychologist in the hood. Puneet says D. David Johnson says D. Joseph Tang says D. D, 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 D. All right, I'm going to put D's there. Wow, Elaine, that was deep there. Let's take a look at this one. Which of the following is considered a disadvantage of naturalistic observation? A, it provides an overabundance of information. B, it deals with behavior not tampered with by outside influences. C, it limits biased observations through careful record keeping. Or D, it does not identify the cause of observed behavior. Okay, I've got one B and some D's. The D's win. David Johnson says rats. All right, you ready to do a check? Let's take a look. Check our work. And without looking at everything else along the way, we'll see where we're at. Right, so number one, psychology is using a method of naturalistic observation would C, observe behavior as it happens outside the laboratory or clinic. 2, in a study of effects of alcohol on driving ability, the control group should be given D, no alcohol at all. Okay, hold on, children, it's okay. So, my goodness, this perfectionism, even in practicing, gonna make all my hair go white before the end. So let's see before we go. Before we speculate, let's see about these and make sure we understand these again. So for those of you at home that are just lurking, just remember, if you get any of these wrong, if you got any of these wrong, or you didn't know the answer before it was suggested in the chat, make sure that you're jotting down the concepts so that you can go back to it. So remind me again, because I got that amnesia. Why is the control group not given alcohol? To isolate effect. So think about the definition of control group and see if you can give me a little more on that one, Praneeth. Ooh, and rule out confounding variables. Bad for the liver. That's pretty good there, Matthew. It's exactly bad for the liver. Okay. So control groups are to rule out confounding variables. Is that the definition of a control group? Isn't that what random assignment is supposed to do? Oh, good question. So let's do this for just a second. I'm going to play Internet Detective to make sure that we understand this. So I'm going to go control group. Defined as the group in the experiment or study that does not receive treatment by the researchers and then is used as a benchmark to measure how the other tested subjects do. So take a look at that. So we have that definition. And then let's go back to research methods here. Take a look. So in this particular case, the control group is given no alcohol at all so that they have a baseline to show the differences between driving ability on no alcohol and driving ability when consuming alcohol. So if this helps anybody out there that's lurking, remember, take a look at this. The group or the study that does not receive treatment by researchers is used as a benchmark. A benchmark meaning kind of like the baseline or the standard to measure the other subjects in the group. So that's one of the ways that you'd want to be able to explain that. Okay. Look at this. A scientific explanation remains tentative until it has adequately been tested. It's called a C, hypothesis. That's straight up definition there. And number 4, a study to determine the degree of relationship between two events is called the correlational method. I know you knew that one. 5, blank is an ability to evaluate, compare, analyze, critique, and synthesize information that is indeed a critical thinking. Again, straight up definition. That'd be considered an easy question. Number 5, the phrase a theory must also be falsifiable means B, the theory must be defined so that it can be disconfirmed. C, yes, I've been asked, can I explain the difference between theory and hypothesis? So give it just a second here and we'll take a look at it. The products of naturalistic observation are best described in terms of D, description. And then this one you guys got incorrect. So you have not learned the self-fulfilling prophecy yet. And so I knew that that one would be about a, I knew that that one would be a little bit of a tricky one for you because C would be probably your logical answer given what you've learned already. We haven't got, we haven't arrived yet at the self-fulfilling prophecy thing. Yeah, so and give us a minute. We'll look at the difference between theory and hypothesis, and we'll also talk about number 6 as well, Gochi. Okay. Looking here, a psychologist observes the confrontation between two rival neighborhood gangs. As Matthew said, psychologist in the hood, that would be B, naturalistic observation. Look at number 10, an experiment to find out if taking ginseng increases IQ scores. The IQ scores would be the D, dependent variable. So taking a look here, I'm sorry, on which one, Goche? Are you talking about number 8? The correct answer is A, self-fulfilling prophecy, which you don't have to know yet. You have not learned it. Which of the following is considered a disadvantage of the naturalistic observation? D, you answered correctly. It does not identify the cause of the behavior. And look at Elaine. Elaine, you shouldn't reveal your secrets. You just know it. You're just right. Now you've just given up your secret. Now everybody knows. You could have just been this super psych goddess, and everyone would bow to you in your psych knowledge. I mean, you'd be like Zimbardo, but you've given away your secrets. So, all right, let's take a quick look. We're going to look at, quickly, because you've asked for some elaboration, I'm going to literally take your question, explain the difference between a theory and a hypothesis. I'm going to ask the Google. Oh, look at that. Looks like we're not the first people to look that up. Let's take a look here and see if we agree with this. In science, a theory is a tested, well-substantiated, unifying explanation for a set of verified, proven factors. A theory is always backed by evidence. A hypothesis is only a suggested possible outcome and is testable and falsifiable. Scientific laws explain things, but they do not describe them. Does this help understand? Ooh. Even Zimbardo makes mistakes. Caged on the inside and the outside. Can I go back to the question? Yes, Praneeth, I can go back to the question. So the question was, what's the theory between, what's the difference between a theory and a hypothesis? So I believe that we were at number 3. A scientific explanation that remains tentative until it has been adequately tested is called an... Now, if we go back to this one, a hypothesis is only a suggested possible outcome and is testable and falsifiable. I would say that this helps understand it. If I were going to ask the next question, I would say that if I was in your shoes, you probably want to know a little bit more about this falsifiable. So I see a theory isn't tentative, but rather established. Yes, Praneeth says that. Now, if I go back, if I can find it quickly, Goche, you said something that I thought was really good about, you said people describe a theory as something that is yet to be established, but theories aren't guesses. They're based on reliable accounts of the world. So, Goche, you had that correct when you said that, because a theory is backed by evidence. They're observable accounts of the world, which has some sort of evidence behind it. It's well substantiated, and it's a unifying explanation that is a set of verified and proven factors. Now, the theories, I guess I kind of look at it like this, Praneeth, in what you just said. I always go to like the phrase theory of evolution. We have lots of verified, substantiated pieces of evidence that we can look to that seems to verify and document that evolution is a thing. But because we don't have an absolute 100% proof of some sort of specific link to, say, humans from primates, or we can't see the exact leap that bacteria made to, or single-celled organisms made to becoming multi-celled organisms that made to become fish, that made to become humans. We can't find necessarily where they grew lungs and ended up walking out of the water. If we go with the whole primordial ooze theory of Big Bang and life emerging from that, that's to me why it's not like a law. So to me, the theory has been tested. There's tons of evidence to it, but we don't always have 100% proof of something. I guess that's the way I like to think of the theory. Laws, it says, can... Ooh, George. Savage. George is savage there, with living that savage life. All right. So let's go to falsifiable, because you guys look a little confused on that. So falsifiability or refutability of a statement, hypothesis, or theory is the inherent possibility that it can be proven false. A statement is also called falsifiable if it is possible to conceive of an observation or an argument which negates the statement in question. So, in other words, if you look here at falsifiability, when they say, let's go back to a question so you guys can look at this a little closer. So let's go back to a theory must be defined so it can be disconfirmed. Theory must also be falsifiable. Go back to our definition. Let's take a look at that again. Is it an inherent possibility that it can be proven false, or it's possible to conceive of an observation or an argument which negates the theory? So in other words, in order to be able to prove it right, you got to be able to also prove it wrong. That's kind of the way I like to think of it, or that helps me kind of think of it in terms of science. If you can try to prove it wrong, that's how you end up maybe replicating the result in the long run. If you try to prove it wrong, you can conceive of a way to prove it wrong, but in the end, you can't actually do that. Then it tends to say that the theory is then correct, or the hypothesis is then correct. So I've got a little bit of time that I can reset and go over a few more of these. How many people are even with us at the moment? Let's take a look. I don't even know the answer to that question. We got about 19 of you, so some of you are really diehards here, which is good, except that, you know, there's that whole rest thing, pesky rest thing that some of you don't get enough of. Let's do this. Stop looking, stop looking. We're going to retake our test. I'm going to come down here. Let's take a look starting with number 13. So one of the test corrections available for number 8. June 20th on that one, Matthew. Okay, let's take a look here. A psychologist watches the rapid eye movements of sleeping subjects and wakes them to find they report they were dreaming. She concludes that dreams are linked to rapid eye movements. This conclusion is based on A, pure speculation, B, direct observation, C, deduction from direct observation, or D, prior prediction. So we have B, 3 C's, 4 C's, 5 C's. Praneeth has changed his answer. Praneeth, are you falling victim to conformity and groupthink? All right, guys, got to wait on that one. Ooh, Derek. Derek's being savage tonight. All right, let's take a look here. C for conformity. All right. To prevent ethical abuse in psychological research, the APA has suggested that A, psychologists must treat all subjects with respect and concern for the subject's dignity. B, psychologists must avoid deception when using human subjects. C, all data collected from a person must be made public. Or D, all psychological harm to subjects must be corrected by counseling. M Key says A, JT says B. MA says A. JT says never mind. He's changing his answer to A. A. Okay, I'm going to leave A there. Let's move on to the next one. A common method for selecting representative samples is to select them A, randomly from the larger population, B, strictly from volunteers, C, by threatening or coercing institutionalized populations, or D, from confidential lists of mail order firms. I'm sorry. Another A there? Definitely C. Oh, we know how Elaine will conduct some experiments. technically, U.S. students are institutionalized populations, so you are part of an educational institution. But I'm not really for threatening or if they don't do it, they're gone. Not for threatening or coercing, at least high school students. Okay, let's take a look at number 16. 3 major ethical concerns of psychological researchers are deception, lasting harm to subjects, and A, morality of the question under investigation, B, loss of future research possibilities, C, falsified results, or D, invasion of privacy. I'm hearing D, 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 D reluctantly. All right. Samantha says D as well. Okay. An experimenter conducts an experiment of the effects of a drug to control hallucinations. He declares the results to be statistically significant, which usually means that A, even though appropriate statistics were used, no difference could be detected between experimental and control groups. B, the results have important implications for theory or practice. C, differences between experimental and control groups of this size occur by chance only 5 times out of 100 or less. Or D, differences between experimental and control groups were so large they could never occur by chance alone. I'm getting D's. I have 2 C's. So if I go with D's, they have it. Praneeth says, no, wait, it has to be D. George says he's pretty sure it's C, but then earlier said he took AP Stats, what happened, which would indicate he's not pretty sure. I'm getting weight C, I think. Wow, so this is really kind of in between here. Okay. Derek says C. Matthew says D because it's against groupthink. Elaine says D. Samantha says D. C cites really specific fact that she doesn't remember, which is an interesting way of reasoning through it. Let's see. Praneeth says statistically significant is the likelihood that a relationship between 2 or more variables is caused by something other than random chance. Imkey says that's because it's less than the 0.05 thing. Elaine said she did not take AP Stats. Oh, no. Are you talking about you're George? It's too late at night to bring in p-scores. Oh, my goodness. So you said conclude the p-value is less than the alpha level. I don't even know this. A 0.05, which means the likelihood of getting a result of this size, assuming the null hypothesis is true, is less than 0.05. Oh, I'm going to puke on that one. The first 3 months for all, anything can happen with enough chance. Yeah, this is triggering me. This is also bad. You guys are Rip George will always love you. All right. The next answer that is a letter I'm going with. Is it C or is it D? Choose wisely. All right. C is the answer I got. I'm going to put that down. We're also intrigued by all these little questions. Let's check them now. I'm going to put the name in. All right. Let's check our work. Let's go back up to where we have answers. All right. Now, let's take a look. C for can we move on? Goche says, should we pretty much be ready for the test after this live stream? Like, will a little bit of extra review after this be enough, you think? Yes, Goche, I think so. I think I would still go through some of these questions independently. We're not going to go through all of them now. But I think that by going through these questions independently, you can get a chance again of just the things you should target for tonight. And then my ultimate is that you should go to bed not much later than now, because I kind of look at it this way. You either know what you know and you're not going to learn it. You're not going to learn it overnight. But let's take a look. So let's take a look here. Go to bed. What does that mean? I know. You guys don't sleep. So you guys said that watching the eye movements of sleeping subjects and wakes them to find if they are dreaming, report that they dreams are linked to REM, rapid eye movements. You said was C, deduction from direct observation, which is good. Ethical abuse in research, to prevent it, it must be treating all subjects with respect and concern for their dignity. A common method for selecting representative samples is to randomly from the larger population. 3 major ethical concerns are deception, lasting harm to subjects, and, as you said, invasion of privacy. An experimenter conducts an experiment on drugs to control hallucinations. And C was the answer. Statistically significant means differences between experimental and control groups of this size occur by chance only 5 times out of 100 or less. Boom. All right, Derek, you just had a very, very good point. You said never was too extreme, and whoever else said that above. Yeah, it was you, Derek. Sorry. So if you look here, this is always a red flag. Never is always a red flag in any AP type of exam, because it's rare that things never happen. It's such a very definitive word that you can't go beyond it. I think the red flag was that oh, stop it. The red flag is that you said that at this time of night. Unless you're in a lab curing cancer, I just don't even want to know. All right, so the ASH experiments were wrong, I guess. Good one, Matthew. That's not too bad there. So you just hit the nail on the head. This is the definition of statistically significant right here. And that was part of that handout we looked at earlier today. So, so good to know. All right. Final thoughts. You wanted to know about your You wanted to know about your anything about FRQ tomorrow. The only hint I'm going to give you, are you all listening? The only hint I'm going to give you is that you do not have to design an experiment. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that I know that through class activities, you're well equipped to answer it. I guarantee that I will make sure that you're aware of the different rules so you don't forget them. Module 8 is pretty much ethics. The thing that I still do need to finish your FRQs. What will happen is I will have them. I'll have them tomorrow. We'll have a brief time between the test, the multiple choice test, and the actual essay that you write to be able to look at some things and to make sure that you're clear on a couple concepts and formatting. Although if you paid attention today, you should know exactly what you need to do with formatting. You really are in pretty good shape. I think the biggest mistake that I've seen, an occasional misapplication of a concept, or maybe not mentioning the context. Like I said in class today, that's the most frequent thing I've seen in terms of mistake, and even that isn't that frequent. I mean, as a whole, for your first round, you guys have done pretty well. But I didn't get to finish them between after school and dinner tonight, and then I've been here with you since 7:50. So I'll have to finish those tonight, but you'll get to see things tomorrow. And what, like I said, I'll put up a kind of a reminder list of the things to make sure you do, so that you don't, you aren't left totally on your own. In future tests, I won't do that, but this is your first full one. And I'd say that if you review your notes, like I said, use the quiz. I'm sorry Albert didn't really pan out for us tonight, and I'll have to see what's going on. I had no idea that it had expired. But if you look at the quizzes that we were just looking at, and you look at research methods and history and approaches, you're really good shape in terms of making sure that you can find those questions that you don't know the answers to and that you can focus your attentions on. So the biggest thing is don't stress. That's the worst thing you can do, is get your anxiety up. Don't walk in expecting that you have to get an A+ or you're going to drop out of high school, because that's just ridiculous, and you know it, and I know it, and everyone knows it. Focus on doing as well as you possibly can, and don't stay up all night trying to study for this test. Don't get up in the morning and the first thing you do is cram, cram, cram. If I've got you third period, don't sit at lunch and just cram, cram, cram. At a certain point, you just have to let it go. Don't sing the song. And you just have to let it go and deal. How many questions is the multiple choice, and was the quiz we were just doing Albert? The quiz we were just doing is not Albert. It's the free resource that's available off my website on the study links. Multiple choice will be 50 questions. You'll have 35 minutes for that. And that's proportionately timing it. I've only been giving you a couple extra minutes on your quizzes, so you really haven't been getting anything overtly extra. That's proportionately timing it like the actual AP exam. It will not take all period to do your multiple choice. Then we'll have a little bit of time before we actually have to start the FRQ part of it. Yes, you will see your FRQ beforehand. That's what we'll do in that little bit of time before we start the FRQ. What other really quick general questions besides what are the answers do you have? Ooh, it's gone silent on me. Is the FRQ or MC worth more? Multiple choice is worth more. Are you going to be taking your test on the Chromebooks? Maybe. I put in a request to get some. I don't know if I got it or not, so I'll have to see. Elaine, we did talk about lab versus experimental. You don't have to know lab. Are there any good tricks for differentiating between psychodynamic and cognitive perspectives? Psychodynamic is always, here's what AP, I'm sorry, I just read George. Is AP Psych usually synthesis? Are you talking about FRQ? And are you talking about synthesis in the same way as AP US? Let me go to Joseph's questions first. Psychodynamic, always think of subconscious, childhood, traumas in childhood, repressed memories, the idea that the subconscious or unconscious mind is controlling your behavior. Cognitive is going to be much more about examining what your thoughts are and how your thoughts can be revealing of things, that sort of thing. Do you have to know specific information about each psychologist from Module 1? Not in any sort of detail, just the general trivial facts about them. Is AP Psych usually synthesis? And I asked you if you're talking about AP or the AP US style of synthesis, or like synthesis moment, or are you talking about the concept of synthesizing information together in one whole? The most heavily covered modules are going to be 2 through 8. I'm sorry, excuse me, 4 through 8. I don't know why I keep doing that. Eric, on the trivial facts part, it's because right now you don't have to know lots of detail about each of the people. What you want to know is what schools of thought and methods of psychology are associated with them. So Sigmund Freud, remember psychodynamic or psychoanalysis. Wilhelm Wundt, remember the structuralism and first, father of psychology, those sorts of things. I mean, little specific factoids about them, but most importantly about the individuals is what branch of psychology are they associated with. Any other generic questions? We are now at 2 hours and 20 minutes. Are the questions kind of passage based? No passages. No. What you're asking is there stimulus questions, George? No stimulus questions. Like what we were just looking at on that psychedelic quiz page. That's what you can expect to see in your test. Scenario kind of questions, which are application, and there will be some of relatively easy difficulty. When I say easy level of difficulty, when you're looking at, some will be just, do you know the definition? You guys are very, very welcome. It's my pleasure. I'm happy to do it. I hope it helps. Thanks for being patient on me being a little delayed on your FRQs since I did this. I got that to you too, Ms. Key. And so yeah, don't flip out. Just be calm. Everything's going to be just fine. Listen to some chill yoga / relaxation music. Don't flip out. You're welcome, George. Everybody, you're very, very welcome. On that note, it's 10:12, and I am going to call it an evening. So have fun studying. I know it's just the favoriteest fun thing you like to do, and we will see each other tomorrow. So have a good night. You're welcome, Praneeth. Have a good night. Don't stay up too late. Please, it's not good for you before a test at least. And don't stress. All right? Have a good night, guys. See you later.